All right, here we are. Sports Bit, betting inside today. Happy holidays. Paulie and Teddy, big game breakdown. We'll go one bowl game, Miami, Ohio against Mississippi State. That's early Monday morning. We'll get to Monday Night Football, the Cowboys and the Lions, and we'll get to the two Christmas Day games in the NFL on Sunday. Big show coming up, and the play of the day, Thursday Night Football, Teddy. This was pros against the Joes. This was a lot of money coming in on Philadelphia with professional money on the Eagles. The pick six by Eli Manning, 34 first half points. And the Giants, if they won, they were in, and now it's a sweat as the Eagles get the W.
Sure, and this is, as you mentioned, a huge pro versus Joe game. I mean, the Eagles were bet from +3 to as high as -2 in some spots. The books that cater to sharp bettors got crushed by this outcome. Then you look at the SIAs or the Bovadas. You know, those guys went off with the Giants as a favorite, and those books did very, very well. But you talk about that late field goal that sent the game over the total. We're not going to call it a bad beat. This was a bad for books scenario. But how does he kick the field goal there? Explain that one from McAdoo. Where they're down by 8. I mean, I guess, all right, you're saying, well, now we just need the touchdown to win. But you still needed a touchdown to win.
Right, and it's 4th and 3. It didn't make any sense. It's 4th and 3. You're near the red zone, and you're right. So you got to get the ball back and get right back down there again, which they did, and they couldn't cash in. That was stupid.
Yeah, but I mean, let's give the Eagles credit for a team that has gone through some rough stretches this season. Another non-offensive touchdown, which ends up being another difference maker in the ball game, both straight up and ATS. They get stuffed at the goal line, but they hold the Giants to just 1 touchdown in 5 red zone tries. Yeah, Philly got out-yarded by close to 200 yards last night. They still got the money. And, of course, Eagles season win bettors like me are still going to have to sweat Week 17 with Dallas clinching the division and home field advantage throughout the playoffs thanks to the Giants' loss.
Yep, good point there. More on that coming up with the big game breakdown. Cowboys now the 1 seed. Bad beats. Look at this. The Nets were up were up 16 at the half against the Warriors, getting 13 points. You lose.
Yeah, they still led with they led the game with 2 minutes left in the third. But laying 13, Golden State, no problem. We'll sleepwalk for 3 quarters, come through in the fourth. How about this? Warriors outscored the Nets 68-36 in the second half. That's one of those scenarios where if you had a bet on the Nets, the first half was too good. You fired up the other team. But still, a tough beat, man. When you're +13 and you're up 16 at the break, you like to cash those tickets.
Yeah, you'd hope so. Lakers catching 6. They scored the first 11 points in Miami. They had the lead with 6 minutes left. They couldn't get the money.
No, and there was a ton of money against the Lakers. They were +4.5, a bet down, a +6 in Miami, so it was nothing but Heat money. And, of course, you know, I mean, L.A. leads with halfway through the fourth quarter. It's a 3-point game after Miami misses with 45 seconds left, but L.A. can't control the rebound. Whiteside with a putback, and then the Heat hit the free throws down the stretch. They win by 7, laying only 6. Tough beat yet L.A.
Yep, bad bets. Our play of the day, Colorado State. We're not the only ones who liked it. We gave it out -13 on the show. Went up to 16.5 in some spots. And how about if you had the under? It was scoreless in the first quarter. 61-50 final.
Yeah, it's one of those scenarios. I missed the early part of the game. I turned it on, 41-7 Idaho. I turned it right back off. I mean, that's you need to see. And when you have a bet, okay, there's a debate. Would you rather be right and lose or wrong and lose? As a handicapper, you want to be right and lose. As a human being, when you're wrong, you know what? I was wrong about that game. You don't sweat it. Chalk it up and come back the next day. But, I mean, both teams 600 yards of offense, but the Rams were -3 in turnovers. And the biggest issue here was Colorado State defense. I mean, Idaho scored touchdowns. 9 touchdowns in a 10-drive span. And the only drive they didn't score a touchdown on, they punted. Colorado State fumbled the punt, and then the Vandals scored a touchdown anyway. Wrong side loser with Colorado State. Sorry about that, guys.
Yep, sorry indeed. Another bad bet. They were betting the Magic in the Garden. Knicks are tough at home.
All of a sudden, yeah. I mean, Madison Square Garden has been a lousy venue for Knicks backers for, a decade plus. My long-term home court edge for the Knicks at the Garden is about as low as any team I have in the league. And yet, right now, tons of money against the Knicks, plus 5.5 down to plus 4. Knicks are now 11-4 against the spread at home. And it's worth noting Orlando, 4 wins in their last 10 games, all 4 W's. They scored 118 plus. They're not winning games on nights where their offense isn't hitting just about everything.
All right, NFL late week line movers. Let's get to this. Money on the Bears-Redskins over.
Yeah, last week it was a frozen tundra in Chicago. This week, temperatures are expected to be above freezing. Bettors reacting to the improved or relatively improved weather conditions, expecting a bounce back from the Redskins after a poor offensive showing on Monday Night Football.
And Miami usually struggles in Buffalo. It doesn't help the games in December. And Bills money at home.
Yeah, more Bills money. We talked about this one earlier in the week. They were bet up from -3 to -4. Late week money now pushing Buffalo up to -4.5 all over the place. If you like the Bills, you can still find those -4s now. I'd get it sooner rather than later.
Falcons up to 3 with some juice at Carolina. Julio Jones looks like he's going to play in this one. And they are betting the Saints at home against Tampa.
Yeah, and the Saints is interesting to see how much money's coming to the Saints. Atlanta, well, let's start with Carolina. That opened at -2. Atlanta opened -2 at Carolina. That's up to -3 now with extra juice, -120, -125 with Jones. But with the Saints, that opened 3. Now we're like 3 -125, 3 -30. It looks like it's going to 3.5. Could be the last home game for Breeze and Peyton. But there are 2 issues I think bettors are getting involved with here. First, there were travel issues with Tampa. They had plane problems leaving Dallas. They didn't get back home until Monday morning on a short week. Remember, these are Saturday games. On a short week with travel and an inexperienced coaching staff, the fact that there were travel issues is definitely in play here. The other issue, of course, the Pro Bowl snubs. The Pro Bowl came out this week. Saints didn't get anyone. Drew Brees leads the NFL in touchdown, leads the NFL in yardage. Instead, Dak Prescott kind of got his bid. Sometimes the Pro Bowl snubs can light a fire under teams. The market's saying that could happen with New Orleans on Saturday.
Okay, Packer money, they're at 7 against the Vikings at home. And oh no, they're betting the Browns again, 2-12 ATS.
Here it comes. Here comes
no.
the Cleveland money. San Diego down to +5 from +6. And I understand the desire to fade the Chargers. San Diego's a pretty beaten down squad right now. The tail end of a miserable season. They just lost a divisional game at home last week. And it was a home game in which 80% of the crowd was rooting for the Raiders. Philip Rivers saying afterwards it felt like a road game. Now you have a West Coast team having to travel east for an early start game in cold and weather. You can understand why the money's coming on Cleveland, and yet, and of course Cleveland faces Pittsburgh in Week 17. The Browns are going to win one. It's supposed to be this one, but we've seen this story before, Paulie, once or twice this season. Browns have been a consistent money loser. The wise guys are on them again.
Yep, Texans down to pick at home against the Bengals. Surprises me. A.J. Green's going to play, and they're betting the Rams, although the Niners have been horrible ATS.
Yeah, they're loading up on the Rams. L.A. has been nothing but Rams money now. Up to -4.5 against the 49ers, the same 49ers team that beat them 28-0 on the opening night in Monday Night Football. And yeah, the Cincinnati money, I think, is coming due to A.J. Green. Green has been upgraded to probable. But the markets also like the way the Bengals are playing defense right now. And I think they're concerned about Tom Savage actually being the starter as opposed to someone that's coming in off the bench.
Monday Night Football total bet up from 41.5 to 44.5, and the line opened Pittsburgh 4 at home against Baltimore. You saw 6 last night on Chris.
Yeah, the first 6 is starting to pop up for Pittsburgh. The prevailing number is still 5.5 for the Steelers, but when the first 6 pops up at Chris, you can expect other books to follow. The line trickling up for Pittsburgh.
All right, one bowl game, and then we'll get to the NFL. Monday Night Football as well will sneak in the Cowboys and the Lions. 4 games coming up next on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
That's right, the 8th annual SBR Forum Bash will be held at the breathtaking all-inclusive Hard Rock Hotel in Punta Cana on Super Bowl weekend. Join Natalie Rydstrom and the Odds Couple as they mingle with SBR pros and have fun under the sun. Stay tuned for video coverage of Bash activities, including a $5,000 poker tournament sponsored by uwager.eu. only on SBR, your sportsbook authority since 1999.
Back on Sportsbet Betting Insight today, Paulie and Teddy. Reminder, we will have a show Monday. We're going to pre-record the show. We don't want people coming in at 5 in the morning the day after Christmas. So it'll be big game breakdown, and then we'll recap everything in the NFL on Tuesday's show. So look for that coming up Monday and Tuesday. Happy holidays out there. Live odds, sportsbookreview.com. This is the St. Pete Bowl, Monday, 8 o'clock Pacific in the morning. Miami of Ohio against Mississippi State. Miss State 14, 58.5 the total. One of the best stories in college football. Miami started 0-6. Then they finished the season 6-0, and they made the quarterback change, Teddy, and it made a world of difference, obviously.
Yeah. Now, no team in NCAA history started 0-6 and made a bowl prior to this year's Miami of Ohio Red Hawks. Now, you're talking about the quarterback change. Gus Ragland, who became the starter after that 0-6 beginning of the season. Well, he went 6-0 in his 6 starts. Look, he ranks number 6 in pass efficiency. He threw for more than 1,200 yards. He has a 15-0 touchdown to interception ratio. And the Red Hawks made everyone who backed them a ton of money over the back half of the campaign. We're talking about a guy who tore his ACL in April, and he might have been the starter to begin with if he didn't get hurt. It was an open competition. But once he got the job, the Red Hawks offense, which did nothing during that 0-6 start, all of a sudden came alive. And, of course, a team that averaged less than 100 yards per game in the 6 losses improved to close to 170 yards per game on the ground over the back half of the season when they won all 6 of those games. And, of course, Miami, number 1 in the MAC in total defense, number 2 against the run, holding foes to just 21 points per game in conference play.
But it is an SEC opponent, so they're going to be bigger, faster, and stronger. And Nick Fitzgerald had 182 yards against A&M, 258 against Ole Miss in late-season games. Tough matchup against the Miami O because they're going to be bigger. He's bigger than the linebackers. They're going to have to tackle him. And they don't see this physical style in the MAC, Teddy.
No, they don't. And, of course, the MAC has been a miserable point spread conference in bowl games. You know, we're talking about since 2008, the MAC entered bowl season. My numbers show them at 15-32 ATS. That's 32% against the spread as a conference since 2008. So when you're making a case for MAC teams, you better make a pretty good case. When you look at Nick Fitzgerald and what he was able to do and his size, I mean, we're talking about a guy who rushed for more than 1,200 yards this season. In the SEC, he averaged 7 yards per carry. He threw for 2,200 yards and another 21 scores. He's got a big-time wide receiver in Fred Ross, a 2-time all-first-team SEC performer. You know, he's got the multiple running backs. Aris Williams, averaged 113 yards per game over the last 4 contests, 5.2 yards for the season. I'm with you. I don't know that Miami O is going to be able to shut this defense down. It's one thing to be shutting down the better offenses in the MAC. They didn't face a lot of the better offenses in the MAC. It's another thing to be doing it against a bigger, more physical team with a brutal quarterback to stop an SEC, obviously, caliber offense.
Yep, Mississippi State had its problems on defense. They allowed 34 points per game and almost 500 yards to SEC opponents. Due to graduation and injuries, they lost 8 regulars. They had 25 first-time starters, the most in the SEC, and 9th most nationally. While it's a good story and a feel-good story with the turnaround, at the end of the day, who did Miami really beat?
Well, let's see. The 2 teams that Miami O beat that are in bowl games, they beat Central Michigan. No, they didn't show up real well in that game against Tulsa. And they beat Eastern Michigan, who will play ODU. But when you're talking about stepping up in class, Red Hawks didn't do that a whole lot. I'd be reluctant to take them plus the points here against the Bulldogs. All
right, live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Game number 2, the early game on Christmas. Ravens in Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. Steelers 5.5, 44.5 the total. The game's on NFL Network. Steelers win the division with a win. Baltimore won the first meeting 21-14. They've actually won 4 in a row against the Steelers. It'd be the first time in franchise history, back-to-back sweeps. That was a strange game, though, Teddy, where it was 21-0 Baltimore, I think that Roethlisberger came back from injury. He didn't have much. But Flacco in the Baltimore offense did nothing in that game. Remember, he threw a 5-yard pass to Wallace, who then housed it for 90 yards, and Baltimore had a blocked punt in that game.
Yeah, I mean, the Ravens didn't do a whole lot. Pittsburgh did less. I mean, you talked about that catch and run from Mike Wallace. That was the big play. The block punt, the big play. But the bigger issue, Roethlisberger was rusty. It looked like he came back one game too early. He really wasn't comfortable in the pocket. He struggled against the pass rush. He couldn't find receivers. He finally got going in the fourth quarter of that contest. But remember, I mean, he went, knee surgery 3 weeks before that ball game. You don't see quarterbacks often come back from knee surgery 3 weeks later, and Big Ben came back too early, which allowed Baltimore to have just about every edge in that contest.
Steelers on a roll. They've won 5 in a row. They've covered 12 of the last 14 December games. The Ravens are number 1 against the run, but they have 20 touchdown passes to wide receivers. Not good when you're going against Antonio Brown. We don't know if Jimmy Smith's going to play. And also, you saw that Brady was able to carve up that defense on Monday night, too. Not good when you're looking at Roethlisberger.
Yeah. You talk about the Jimmy Smith injury. He missed practice on Wednesday. He missed practice on Thursday. He's got a bad ankle. Sharice Wright could be inserted into the starting lineup against a pretty potent passing attack. But with Baltimore, they've been real good against the run. Number 1 in the country. But as you mentioned, they have some problems at times defending the pass. Offensively, the Ravens, to me, they're a one-trick pony. When they can run the football, when Terrence West can move the chains, that offense is pretty good. When they can't run the football and asking Joe Flacco to do everything, the wide receivers just aren't good enough. Last week, what do you have? 122 yards from scrimmage. More than half those on the ground, as well as thrown through the air. But when he played Pittsburgh, and the Steelers ranked number 5 against the run, held to just 21 yards on 15 carries in that ball game. But Paulie, before you want to lay points in this series, and I understand there's a lot of edges for the Steelers, but man, it's hard to lay points in this series. 7 of the last 8 regular season meetings between these two teams at Heinz Field have been decided by exactly 3 points.
We'll get back to this game coming up with Play of the Day. Up next, we'll get to the Broncos and the Chiefs and the Lions and the Cowboys on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Do your research before you bet. Check out our ratings guide to see which books have the best ratings and sign-up bonuses. Open up several accounts. Shop for lines at SBRodds.com. Always be ahead of the game.
Back on SportsBit, Betting Insight today, big game breakdown continues. The night game on Christmas on NBC, Broncos and the Chiefs. Chiefs 3 with some juice, or 3.5, 37.5 the total. It's 8-6 against 10-4. Chiefs win, they're in. Chiefs were getting 3.5 the first meeting. Remember, they won that epic game 30-27 in overtime, 24-24 in regulation. Total offense, 464 to 273 for the Broncos. Yards per play, 6 for Denver, 3.6 for Kansas City. What has happened to this offense with the Broncos? Last week against the Patriots, 2 for 17 on third down, 58 rushing yards, 24th in yards, 26 on third down, 29th in the red zone. They missed C.J. Anderson. They were 5-2 when he got hurt. And I'll tell you, Kubiak, if you punt to Hill, you should have your head examined and get Norwood off punt returns. He fumbles every week for you.
Yeah. Okay, let's go back to that first meeting for a minute, because if you remember, Denver led by 8 with 15 seconds left. And KC got the almost tying touchdown, the tying 2-point conversion, and then won in overtime after Kubiak made the ill-fated decision to attempt, a 60-yard field goal or something. And then KC had the good field position, got a couple of first downs, and boom, got the game-winning field goal. You can make an argument that Kubiak gave that game away. But you talk about the missing C.J. Anderson. They do. There are a lot of issues, and not just the chemistry issues that we all heard about with the locker room problems. The offensive line hasn't played well for Denver. They haven't played well basically in the better part of the last 2 months. They were decent early in the season. They have declined in recent weeks. And man, these receivers, there's a lot of guys that like these Broncos receivers right now. I don't know right now that KC doesn't have the better receiving core. Denver's receivers have the dropsies. And with KC, you got Jeremy Maclin healthy now. You got Travis Kelce making plays downfield. You got Tyreek Hill healthy. I'm not going to say that Denver has the better weapons. They don't. They certainly haven't shown it. Casey's got to run the football here. The Broncos, number 29 against the run. But, I mean, the pass defense has been pretty good, Paulie.
Okay, so this is what we talked about earlier in the week. The pros say Denver's going to show up, but these are the same guys who are betting Cleveland every week. I don't think they show up because I think there's something in this offense, defense, and the fighting, the back and forth. But I think it's Seattle part 2, which is the defense has been on the field for a ridiculous amount of plays because the offense keeps going 3 and out. They're ticked off. The first half is very important. And I know Andy Reid likes to go conservative when they get the lead. If they get the lead in this one, I don't think he'll do it. I think he'll try to extend the lead. And but I'm concerned that the offense can't do anything. And the fact that they're fighting back and forth and the defense has been on the field for so many plays. The defense, though, has led the league in only 10 touchdown passes. They've been excellent there, but as you pointed out, you can run the ball on them, 29th against the run.
Yeah, I mean, Denver, they've allowed the 10 TDs all year. They have the most sacks in the AFC, 40 sacks. Von Miller, 13 and a half of those. Denver gives up the second fewest yards per game. They rank in the top 5 in scoring defense. We know how good this defense has been. And Kansas City, I mean, 2-8 against the spread, the last 10 at home. Their last 7 games, they've gone 6-1 straight up. They've been outgained by 600 yards during that span. But the way they lost last week, yeah, exactly. Wow, they're outgained almost 100 yards a game. The way they lost last week to Tennessee, I cash ticket with the Titans was not a right side. Let's see, they had a 4th and goal try from the 1. Reed being aggressive. They got stuffed. Alex Smith threw an interception in the end zone late in the 3rd quarter. Again, Reed being aggressive. Didn't work out, you know. He doesn't like to throw when he doesn't have to in the red zone. And then, of course, his ill-fated timeout for suck-up, give him another chance to boot the 53-yard game winner. Now, it's a Chiefs team that they missed Derek Johnson last week at linebacker, and now this week they may not have the pass-rushing force that Justin Houston brings to the table. He's missed practice all week. Very questionable. So we're talking about a team that has struggled against the spread. They've been outgained and outplayed in a lot of these contests. And they've got a couple of key defensive injuries. And, they're facing a foe that's on the desperate side. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to lay with KC in this one.
All right. Houston should play. I'll just say that. And also Andy Reid, also 4th and 1 from midfield with 3 minutes left. He punted. Okay, Monday Night Football. Lions and the Cowboys. 7.5, 44.5. I think this line's going to actually move down because Dallas locked up the 1 seed. It's 9-5 against 12-2. No Pro Bowl for Stafford, and he's using a different glove.
Yeah, of course. You know, this is a return home for Stafford. He grew up, he was a Dallas high school star. Arlington close enough to Dallas. But, with the glove last week, what was he, 24, 39, 273. Decent numbers in the cold. Won't have to deal with that in this one. So now Dallas has locked up the number 1 seed. What about Detroit? I mean, the Lions beat the Packers in Week 17 at home. They're in. They win the division. If not, well, not
they
so
can
much.
win this game and lose. They can win this game and lose to Green Bay and get a wild card at 10-6.
That is very true. But I'm not convinced that the Lions are going to look at it that way. I worry about Detroit and their mentality for this ball game. I mean, look, their defense has been phenomenal. They've held their last 8 opponents to 20 points or less. But the Darius Slay injury, and another guy who got snubbed from the Pro Bowl, but Slay deserved to be a Pro Bowl player this year. He left last week's game with a hamstring injury. He's been their best player in the secondary, someone who you want to be aware if he's in or out before you make a wager.
And also, I don't agree with it, but you'll see the Detroit money come in. But Dallas, they're going to play everybody. They don't want 3 weeks off. They're going to go balls to the wall in this one on Monday night. If they sit people, it's obviously going to be Week 17. And one thing, with this Lions defense, they have played well, no doubt. Here's the quarterbacks they faced in the last 11. Hoyer, Wentz, Keenum, Cousins, Osweiler, Bradford twice, Bortles, Breeze, Barkley, and Eli. If they want to make the playoffs, they're going to have to beat Dak and Rodgers, or maybe one of the two or even both to get in there. Tough assignment for Detroit on the road. And Teddy, you talked about this too. This run, Dallas went 9-0 straight up in ATS, 0-4 since.
Yeah, and I still have questions about this defense. There's talk Randy Gregory back from his suspension this week, which may give them a little bit more of a pass rush. But, when you're a team like the Dallas Cowboys, and you're America's team, and people pay attention to what you do, and you cover 9 consecutive point spreads and win every one of those games in straight up fashion, there will be a market reaction / overreaction. There has been. Now 0-4 ATS-ins, and they've been winning these games. They only lost once during that span. So when you win 3 out of 4 and don't cover a point spread, that tells us that the time to back the Cowboys was 2 months ago. Today, they're still a little bit overvalued commodity.
Yes, all right. Money time, play of the day, 39-23 on the football season. Tough Thursday for us. We already gave out the Packers 6.5 early in the week. Back to Christmas. What are we doing, Teddy?
Well, let's take a look at the Steelers and the Ravens over the total. 44.5, the current number. That's game number 127/128. This time around, Big Ben is in pretty darn good form. Baltimore with the injuries in the secondary. And I think the Ravens will have some success on the ground here, enough to balance the offense, enough to make a couple of big plays of their own. Look for a high-scoring affair on Christmas night, or Christmas afternoon, I should say, late afternoon. Take the Steelers and Ravens over the total. That's our play of the day.
All right, very good. Getting close to the 1-year anniversary with SportsBit. Thanks for watching. Merry Christmas. Thanks to the SBR crew. And we'll be back Monday with Big Game Breakdown. Thank you, Teddy, as well. Happy holidays out there, Teddy.
Ah, shucks, Paulie. Thank you, too. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Happy Kwanzaa. Whatever you celebrate, we'll talk to you all next week.